September 13th, 2023, 2:47 a.m., Sevastopol Bay, Crimea. The night was moonless. Fog drifted across the Black Sea, reducing visibility to 200 meters. Inside Sevastopol's naval base, Russia's Black Sea fleet rested at anchor. Two submarines, the Rostov-on-Donu and the Minsk, sat in dry dock for repairs. The Rapucha-class landing ship Minsk was moored at Pier 7. Patrol boats circled the harbor entrance. Radar operators watched their screens. Air defense crews manned Pantsir S-1 systems on surrounding hills. Russian commanders believed their base was impenetrable. At 2:47 a.m., 6 Ukrainian sea drones entered Sevastopol Bay. Each drone, measuring 5.5 meters long and traveling at 40 knots, carried 450 kilograms of high explosive. They skimmed the water at 50 centimeters height, too low for radar, too small for visual detection in the fog. Russian sensors detected nothing until the drones were 400 meters from their targets. By then, it was too late. 3 drones struck the Rapucha-class landing ship Minsk. The explosions tore through the ship's hull at the waterline. The vessel listed 15 degrees, flooding rapidly. 2 drones struck the dry dock holding the submarines Rostov-on-Donu and Minsk. The blasts damaged the dock's gates and structure. Water rushed in. The submarines, unable to move, began taking on water. 1 drone struck a patrol boat attempting to intercept. The boat sank in under 4 minutes. This is MilFront, where we analyze how Ukraine, a nation without a navy, drove Russia's Black Sea fleet from its home port. Because this wasn't the first sea drone attack, and it wouldn't be the last. This is the story of how autonomous surface vehicles rewrote naval warfare. Subscribe now, you need to see how technology defeats tradition. Ukrainian sea drones, officially designated USV for unmanned surface vehicles, represent a revolution in asymmetric naval warfare. Ukraine, having lost most of its navy in 2014 when Russia seized Crimea, couldn't rebuild a conventional fleet. Russian naval dominance in the Black Sea was absolute. Ukraine needed a different approach. The solution was sea drones, small, cheap, autonomous boats carrying heavy explosives. Developed in secret by Ukrainian defense companies and volunteer engineers, the first prototypes appeared in late 2022. By mid-2023, production had scaled to dozens of units. The basic design was elegant. A fiberglass hull, 5.5 meters long and 1.5 meters wide, shaped to minimize radar cross-section. A water jet propulsion system powered by a conventional gasoline engine, providing speeds up to 45 knots. A satellite navigation system for waypoint guidance, with encrypted control links for human operators. A 450-kilogram warhead, positioned in the bow, with contact and remote detonation options. And most critically, autonomy. The drone could navigate to target coordinates without continuous operator input, making it resistant to jamming. Each drone cost approximately $250,000 to build. Compared to the targets they destroyed, this was extraordinarily cost-effective. The tactical advantage was overwhelming. Traditional anti-ship weapons, missiles, and torpedoes are expensive and detectable. A Harpoon anti-ship missile costs $1.2 million. A torpedo costs similar amounts. Both can be intercepted by air defense or countermeasures. Sea drones cost 1/5 as much, travel on the water surface below radar, and are nearly impossible to stop. Russian air defense systems, optimized for aircraft and missiles, couldn't engage surface targets. Russian ships' guns could shoot at drones, but hitting a 5-meter target moving at 40 knots in darkness or fog required luck. Russian patrol boats could intercept drones, but only if they detected them early enough. In practice, detection came too late. The September 13th attack on Sevastopol demonstrated these advantages. Ukrainian operators launched 6 sea drones from the Odessa region, approximately 300 kilometers from Sevastopol. The drones navigated autonomously, following pre-programmed waypoints, communicating via satellite. They approached Sevastopol from the southwest, across open water at night in fog. Russian coastal radar, focused on air threats, didn't detect the drones. Russian patrol boats, equipped with surface search radar, detected anomalies, but couldn't identify them as threats until the drones were inside the harbor. Russian air defense systems, Pantsir S-1 and naval gun systems couldn't engage targets at sea level. The drones reached their targets unimpeded. The Rapucha-class landing ship Minsk, displacing 4,080 tons, was a Soviet-era amphibious assault ship. It could carry 10 tanks or 340 troops. Russia operated several Rapucha-class ships in the Black Sea Fleet, using them to transport equipment and personnel to occupied Crimea. The Minsk, moored for routine maintenance, was an ideal target. At 2:48 a.m., 3 sea drones struck the Minsk's hull simultaneously. The first drone hit the bow, below the waterline. The 450-kilogram warhead detonated, blowing a 6-meter hole in the hull. Water rushed into the forward compartments. The second drone struck amidships, penetrating the engine room. The explosion destroyed machinery and started fires. The third drone hit the stern, damaging the ship's propulsion. The combined damage was catastrophic. The Minsk listed 15 degrees to starboard. Flooding couldn't be controlled. By 3:30 a.m., the ship was partially submerged at its mooring. It would take months of repairs and millions of dollars to restore the vessel to service. At the same time, 2 sea drones targeted the dry dock holding submarines Rostov-on-Donu and Minsk. Dry docks are vulnerable structures, essentially large basins with gates that can be pumped dry for ship repairs. The submarines, sitting on blocks inside, were defenseless. The first drone struck the dock's caisson gate, the watertight door sealing the dock. The explosion damaged the gate's structure and mechanisms. Water began seeping through. The second drone hit the dock wall near the submarines. The blast cracked the concrete and damaged pump systems. With the gate compromised and pumps failing, water flooded the dry dock. The submarines, designed to operate submerged, were not designed to be flooded while in dry dock. Water entering hull openings caused electrical damage. Equipment rusted. Systems failed. The Rostov-on-Donu, a Kilo-class submarine, suffered significant damage. Repairs would take over a year. The 6th drone targeted a Russian patrol boat attempting to intercept the attack. The boat, a Raptor-class fast attack craft, was racing toward the harbor entrance when the drone struck. The explosion hit the boat's hull at high speed, punching through and detonating inside. The boat's fuel tanks ignited. It sank in under 4 minutes. 12 Russian sailors were killed or missing. Which defense was most effective against sea drones? A. Coastal radar. B. Patrol boats. C. Air defense systems. Comment below. The September 13th attack inflicted serious damage, but it was not the first Ukrainian sea drone strike. The campaign began months earlier. In October 2022, Ukrainian sea drones attacked Russian ships near the Kerch Strait. Several drones were intercepted, but the attack demonstrated the concept's viability. In May 2023, Ukrainian sea drones damaged a Russian tanker in Novorossiysk port. The tanker, carrying fuel for Russian military operations, was holed below the waterline. Repairs took weeks. In July 2023, sea drones attacked the Kerch Strait Bridge, damaging the roadway and disrupting Russian logistics to Crimea. In August 2023, multiple sea drone attacks targeted Russian vessels across the Black Sea. A Russian landing ship was damaged. A patrol boat was sunk. Russian merchant ships carrying military cargo refused to approach Crimean ports. By September, the cumulative effect was clear. Russia's Black Sea fleet, once dominant, was under siege. The psychological impact was profound. Russian sailors, knowing they were vulnerable to attacks they couldn't prevent, became reluctant to deploy. Ship captains kept vessels in port where they felt safer, but the September 13th attack proved that even port wasn't safe. Russian morale collapsed. Recruitment for Black Sea Fleet assignments became difficult. The strategic consequences extended beyond damaged ships. Russia's Black Sea Fleet, responsible for projecting power and supporting ground operations, became risk-averse. Naval bombardment of Ukrainian coastal cities, frequent in 2022, ceased almost entirely by late 2023. Russian amphibious operations, using landing ships to move troops and equipment, stopped. Russian submarine patrols, launching Kaliber cruise missiles at Ukrainian targets, became less frequent. The financial cost was staggering. The landing ship Minsk, repairs estimated at $80 million. The Rostov-on-Donu submarine, repairs estimated at $300 million, plus over a year out of service. The patrol boat sunk, $15 million to replace. The dry dock damage, $100 million to repair. Total direct costs from one attack, $495 million. Ukraine's investment, 6 sea drones at $250,000 each, totaling $1.5 million. Cost exchange ratio, 330 to 1. This is asymmetric warfare at its most effective. For Russia, the sea drone threat required expensive countermeasures. They increased patrol boat deployments, burning fuel and crew time. They installed additional sensors, investing millions in detection systems that proved only marginally effective. They erected physical barriers, nets and booms, around harbor entrances. These helped but couldn't guarantee protection. They deployed helicopters for aerial surveillance. But Ukraine launched attacks at night, in poor weather, when helicopters couldn't fly effectively. Every countermeasure imposed costs without guaranteeing success. For Ukraine, sea drones became a strategic weapon. They couldn't destroy Russia's Black Sea Fleet entirely, but they could make Russian commanders cautious. They could deny Russia use of its naval bases. They could impose costs that Russia struggled to afford. The technological advantages of sea drones became clear. Autonomy meant they couldn't be jammed. Small size meant they were hard to detect. Low cost meant Ukraine could afford to lose some while still achieving objectives. Stealth meant they arrived without warning. And shock value meant each successful attack resonated far beyond its immediate damage. The Russian response revealed systemic weaknesses. Russian naval doctrine, developed for blue water fleet operations, had no answer for swarms of small autonomous boats. Russian sensors, optimized for tracking aircraft and missiles, struggled with sea-level targets. Russian weapons, designed for engaging ships and submarines, couldn't reliably hit small, fast-moving drones. Russia's inability to adapt highlighted a broader problem. Soviet-era military thinking, focused on symmetric warfare between comparable forces, couldn't counter asymmetric threats. Ukraine, forced to innovate by necessity, developed solutions Russia couldn't match. The international implications were significant. Navies worldwide studied Ukrainian sea drone tactics. The U.S. Navy initiated programs to develop similar capabilities. China accelerated drone development. Iran, already using drone boats, refined their designs. The Black Sea became a laboratory for future naval warfare, and the lessons learned would influence naval doctrine for decades. Here on MilFront, we analyze not just individual battles, but how technology reshapes warfare. Sea drones didn't just damage Russian ships. They challenged fundamental assumptions about naval power. A nation without a navy defeated a nation with a powerful fleet. Innovation trumped tradition. Asymmetry defeated symmetry. This is the future of naval warfare. How much did the damaged ships cost Russia? A. 300 million, B. 495 million, C. 600 million. Answer at end. The tactical evolution of sea drone warfare continued throughout late 2023 and into 2024. Ukrainian forces refined their tactics based on lessons from each attack. Early attacks used single drones or small groups. These achieved some successes but were vulnerable to interception. Later attacks used larger swarms, 6 to 12 drones, launched from multiple directions. This overwhelmed Russian defenses. Timing became critical. Attacks at night, in poor weather, maximized confusion and minimized detection. Ukrainian operators synchronized attacks with other operations, distracting Russian forces. Target selection became more sophisticated. Early attacks focused on targets of opportunity. Later attacks prioritized high-value ships, submarines, landing ships, and flagships. Each successful strike removed significant capability from Russian inventory. Coordination with other assets improved. Sea drones were integrated with aerial drones, missiles, and special operations. A combined arms approach that Russia couldn't predict or counter. The Russian adaptation efforts had mixed success. Physical barriers around harbors helped. Nets and booms forced drones to slow or surface, making them easier to engage. But barriers couldn't protect ships at sea or cover every approach. Increased patrols detected some attacks earlier, but Ukraine launched attacks from multiple directions, overwhelming patrol coverage. Electronic warfare measures attempted to jam drone communications, but autonomous navigation meant drones could complete missions without continuous control. Some Russian successes occurred. Russian forces claimed to have destroyed dozens of Ukrainian sea drones. Some claims were credible, supported by wreckage photos. Others were propaganda. Overall, Ukraine's success rate remained high. Estimates suggest 60% to 70% of launched drones reached targets or caused defensive reactions. This success rate, unprecedented for such low-cost weapons, validated the concept. The economic equation remained favorable to Ukraine. Each drone cost $250,000. Each successful hit caused millions in damage. Even accounting for intercepted drones, Ukraine achieved extraordinary return on investment. The psychological warfare aspect amplified results. Each attack, successful or not, reminded Russian sailors of their vulnerability. Videos of explosions spread online, damaging Russian morale and prestige. Russian propaganda couldn't hide burning ships. The cumulative effect of months of sea drone attacks fundamentally altered Black Sea dynamics. By early 2024, Russia's Black Sea fleet operated primarily from Novorossiysk, hundreds of kilometers east of Sevastopol. The fleet that once dominated was now defensive, risk-averse, and ineffective. Ukrainian grain ships, which Russia had blockaded in 2022, resumed exports via Black Sea corridor. Russia, unable to enforce the blockade without risking ships to drones, tacitly accepted the situation. This economic victory, won by sea drones, was worth billions to Ukraine's economy. The strategic lesson was profound. Naval power, traditionally measured in tonnage and firepower, could be countered by innovation and asymmetry. Ukraine's drone navy didn't match Russia's fleet in conventional terms, but it didn't need to. It just needed to impose costs Russia couldn't afford. The technological trends suggested sea drones would become more sophisticated, longer range, better sensors, swarm coordination, AI-enabled targeting. Each improvement would make them more lethal. The balance between sea drones and countermeasures would remain contested, but the genie was out of the bottle. Every nation, from superpowers to small states, could now threaten naval forces with relatively cheap autonomous boats. The naval warfare paradigm had shifted, and Ukraine wrote the manual. The answer? B. $495 million. The September 13th sea drone attack cost Russia an estimated $495 million in direct damages. Landing ship Minsk, 80 malars. Submarine Rostov-on-Donu, 300 malars. Patrol boat, 15 malars. Dry dock repairs, 100 malars. Ukraine's cost, 6 drones at $250,000 each, totaling $1.5 million. That's a 330 to 1 cost exchange ratio, $1.5 million to cause nearly $500 million in damage. This is the power of asymmetric warfare. This is how David beats Goliath. Not by matching Goliath's strength, but by finding Goliath's weakness and exploiting it relentlessly. Russia's weakness was obvious. Their navy was designed for 20th century warfare. Aircraft carriers, submarines, cruisers. Impressive on paper, vulnerable to 21st century autonomous systems. Ukraine, without a navy, built a navy of robots. And those robots defeated Russia's ships. The implications extend far beyond the Black Sea. Every navy worldwide now faces the sea drone threat. Aircraft carriers worth billions, vulnerable to swarms of cheap drones. Naval bases, once safe harbors, now targets. Blockades, once enforceable by superior fleets, now contested by swarms. The age of autonomous naval warfare has begun, and Ukraine showed the world how it's done. Was Ukraine's sea drone strategy justified? How should navies defend against swarm attacks? What's the next evolution in naval drone warfare? Comment below. And if you believe innovation defeats tradition, type MilFront in the comments. Your engagement spreads this analysis to military professionals studying the future of war. Subscribe to MilFront, because we show you how technology reshapes warfare. The Black Sea Fleet is rebuilding, but it will never feel safe again, because somewhere out there, autonomous hunters are waiting. Stay vigilant.